in that same neighborhood. We are joined by Adam Rittenberg, ESPN.com, who's going to give us some time when he doesn't have it. About 10 minutes here with Adam. You have been all over this story with Northwestern. In your opinion, Adam, what changed from Friday, the 2-week suspension, to yesterday with Coach Fitzgerald being fired?
Yeah, a couple of things, Smokey. There were more details that came out publicly, for starters, beginning with the report in the Daily Northwestern, and then obviously we reported some details, others did as well. And also the pressure ratcheted up significantly. And there were some news stories that came out, either people corroborating the whistleblowers' claims or providing new information about things that they experienced while they played at Northwestern. And, there was a meeting of the Board of Trustees with the president on Sunday, I was told. I think there were people on either side of that, some that certainly supported Pat Fitzgerald and wanted him to continue, others who agreed ultimately with the president to make the change. But it's certainly and then obviously the president in his statement on Monday night announced that part of the culture of that program is broken and head coaches have to oversee the culture, and did not believe Pat Fitzgerald could proceed as the head coach at Northwestern.
So, I mean, based on the reporting of the student newspaper, you guys and others, why did the university put so little weight or, punishment behind the report from the law firm? Was the report from the law firm just too narrow on one incident and not the whole issue of hazing in the program?
It's a great question. I can't answer it fully because I haven't seen the report. They've only provided an executive summary. It's been very limited as far as the details, and I've been told only a few people have actually seen that report in its entirety. But I can tell you this, in speaking with the whistleblower multiple times over the weekend, he shared everything. He shared the details that appeared in the Daily Northwestern, that appeared in ESPN. He was very thorough. He was prepared when we spoke, went through almost a Google Doc of things that he wanted to discuss, and told me that he did the same thing with the investigator and her team. So essentially, they should have had all the information at their disposal but prior to making the decision on Friday that Fitzgerald would only get that 2-week suspension in obviously a really light time of the calendar, and wouldn't be impacted at all, really, as the head coach going forward. There'd be some other measures put in place. So that was why this is such an odd situation. Is oftentimes these investigations lead directly to a firing. In this case, it didn't. It led to a suspension, a slap on the wrist, essentially. And then the reaction and the additional details and reporting, that's what ultimately led to the a new decision on Monday night to fire Fitz.
Fitzgerald has released a letter himself based on his attorney or a firm that he has hired. So is this about to get ugly?
Absolutely. It certainly could and will if Northwestern pursues for cause termination. It's very difficult to fire coaches for cause to begin with. I think it's even more difficult when your investigation that you commissioned determined that there wasn't enough evidence that Fitzgerald knew about this, and that you Northwestern and Fitzgerald, according to his statement that you mentioned, they agreed together that the 2-week suspension was enough. So what changed? What changed to lead to a firing? And then since you fired him, what would your for cause termination a claim be against him? Because I think it's going to be really tough for Northwestern to do that. And Fitzgerald's hired a very prominent attorney, a former U.S. attorney here in the Chicago area, to represent him. So certainly it's headed that direction, that Pat Fitzgerald and his alma mater will go at it to some degree in court.
Adam, he didn't know about it, though, a pretty terrible defense as well, considering that he's the head coach and presumably the highest paid employee at Northwestern University, and someone who should know about these things and prevent them from going on within his program?
Right. I mean, I think that has become, as times have changed, a less justifiable defense. I didn't know anything. I wasn't there when it happened. Again, the investigation corroborated much of what this whistleblower said. So whatever you think of the whistleblower, and some have questioned his credibility, and I get it, his claims were corroborated to some degree. And so then it turns it back to Fitzgerald. Yes, you may not have known. We can't prove that you knew about this, but you've been the head coach for 17 years. You established the culture. These things, if true, did not just involve one or two players. They involved a lot of players, hazing and doing some pretty horrible things to some of their teammates. How is this not known from a head coach's perspective? And that certainly played into the decision from Michael Schill on Monday night to ultimately fire Pat Fitzgerald.
Adam, you had a tweet like just moments ago about Northwestern is retaining the assistant coaches and support staff after a meeting with, I guess, Derek Gregg, the AD. Shouldn't that support staff and those coaches also known?
That's a fair point. And again, according to the investigation, while there wasn't evidence that they knew, there were opportunities to identify what was going on and report it. So a number of those coaches have been in the program. One assistant coach has been with Fitzgerald his entire tenure. He was a holdover from the previous coaching staff. And so, but as of now, none of them are being impacted as far as their employment for 2023. They're still going to remain on the staff. And, again, while I think it's fair to ask why, you also have to put together a season here. And if you were to get rid of half your staff 3 weeks before training camp and nobody in that program that's been around these players, that's an even tougher mountain to climb. It already is a steep one for Northwestern. It would get even worse if some of these other coaches weren't around, and certainly the strength staff, the training staff, and everybody else who's part of their program.
My last question, and thank you very much for time you didn't have. How has this and what has been the reaction overall? You have a legacy coach, the most successful one they've ever had. He played there. He's coached there for nearly 2 decades. How has this rocked the campus at Northwestern?
It absolutely has. And, there was a feeling yesterday after the news broke that, did Northwestern football just die? How do they come back from this? A longtime staff member, someone who's still around the program, told me today it's catastrophic. It's almost like we gave ourselves the death penalty. Now, again, that's emotional. It's in the moment. It's hyperbolic. There's, you guys know at Baylor, a lot of people were saying Baylor was done. Baylor wins the Big 12 championship not that long after. Penn State was done. We'll never hear from them again. They won the Big 10. This place is a little different because the history is so poor, other than Pat Fitzgerald's time as a player and a coach. Now, they hadn't been performing on the field. You certainly could have justified a firing, honestly, for just performance based off of the last 2 years and how this year is not exactly projected to be a great season. So I do think that there'll be a chance for Northwestern to rebound, but there's so many issues up in the air. I mean, I'm parked right next to the stadium, guys, right now. This is an antiquated stadium that needs to be renovated. They have a plan, $800 million to renovate this stadium. People are questioning whether it's going to happen now after the news on Monday night. That's a huge, huge thing for a program that absolutely needs a new stadium to boost attendance, to boost enthusiasm. Now there's questions about that. There's questions about everything.
Good luck the rest of what you're doing on this story, Adam. I know you got plenty of other things to do, and not sure if you were supposed to be at Big 12 Media Day starting tomorrow and Thursday or not, but continued luck as you cover this, and thanks for your time, and we appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
That's Adam Rittenberg, ESPN.com.